The DIY version of controlling your own narrative is turning on a microphone and telling people what it is you want them to know.
You tapped in with the Questions Hip Hop Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Kantrowitz. I talk to hip hop's greatest practitioners and participants, from the stars in front of the microphone to the people behind the scenes, about their music and the culture at large. And now, let's get into the questions. Today, I am very pleased to be joined by two people who I guess really now at this point I've known for maybe a decade or coming up on a decade. Absolute mainstays in the Los Angeles hip hop scene. Two very talented and imaginative creatives who are not only excelling in the respective lanes that they're in, but we love a multi-hyphenate around these parts, and these guys are absolute multi-hyphenates, and they have teamed up for a new record that has just come out by the time you're watching this. The record is called Doomed. I am joined by Open Mike Eagle and Kenny Segal. Guys, how are you?
Doing good.
Yeah, doing well, chilling. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. So, I mean, you guys have collaborated a bunch in the past. And I think that I would imagine that a collaborative record must be something that has been sort of in the cooker for a while. Is that true, or was this a rather recent sort of development?
I mean, I think the lore goes that I've been trying to make this happen for about a decade, and finally wore this man down. But yeah, I mean, we have worked together since a whole different stage of our careers, absolutely. I think. And so this was, I mean, an inevitable thing that was going to happen one of these days.
Mike, I'm thinking about it. You haven't really done maybe one record that's been a complete collaborative effort with one producer, right?
I've done that twice before, but the last time was legit 10 years ago. 2016 was the last time I did a one producer.
Got it. So he shouldn't take it personal that you...
I mean, you know, he understands me. He understands me. I've had, you know, I am a megalomaniac to some degree when it comes to making music. So it is sometimes difficult for me to have the sort of conversations necessary to really be a good collaborator. But part of the reason this was able to work is because me and Kenny have been working together for so long. Like, a lot of people don't know, even aside from, you know, just beats he might have had on projects of mine, various projects, he mixed a lot of my records. So we have a real sort of shorthand about each other's sort of preferences and a workflow that allows me to be able to collaborate despite my natural inclinations.
This is a concept record, I guess?
Yes, it is.
And we're gonna dance around it in certain ways, but from an eagle eye view.
See what I did
that's
there?
Nice. No one's
that's
ever
good.
made one of those jokes.
It's never happened.
Yeah, thanks. First, what is the sort of conceit of this record?
I mean, it's definitely a breakup album, but it explores the concept outside of just like one individual's experience with it. It in many ways, it sort of teases apart the concept as a whole through this lens of, it's almost like a multiversal angle, and like all the different ways that a relationship can sort of fall apart.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's a subtitle for the album, which is, so it's Doomed, but it's a rap album about a relationship that ends in every possible universe. And so it's not necessarily one through line through the whole thing, and it's sort of looked at from a bunch of different angles.
Got it. What was, besides working with a single producer, and you hadn't done that in a decade, was there anything different about this experience for you, writing-wise? Like sort of taking on this concept, and or did the concept sort of happen later after you'd done a few songs?
Oh no, concept was pretty, it emerged pretty quickly, and I would say that the difference in this and any other thing I've written is that I wrote a lot of these songs very quickly. A lot faster of a process than I've ever worked at before.
What do you attribute that to?
On one hand, I think it was the sort of emotions that I was trying to analyze and process, meeting this quality that was happening in Kenny's beats at the time too, where it met them so accurately that it seemed like very fertile ground to, okay, I can write this song, I can explore this feeling over this particular soundscape. And is, I think it's partly to do with Kenny's, like how prolific he is too. He's got a lot of beats. So like once we were able to sort of find the flavor, he had a bunch for me to work with.
Kenny, when you're working on a project like a full album collaboration, what's your sort of MO there? Are you pre-selecting and sending a bunch of beats? Do you like to sit down with the artist? Like, how does that work for you at this stage?
I mean, there's definitely, depending on the artist, there's some amount of like pre-planning. Like Mike told me that this was going to be an album about a breakup, like before we'd even started it. But typically I like to send, the first pack is normally just a whole bunch of stuff I already have, not so much like made for the artist, and kind of see if we throw a bunch of shit up against the wall and kind of see what sticks. And then once we have a song or two and a vibe, then I start making more bespoke stuff. In this case, I feel like there was really just one major pack of new stuff that ended up being almost the whole album. Like there was definitely a few beats that got thrown in at the end, but a bulk of the album was kind of from the reactionary pack I made from the first thing that I sent him, that I think maybe like one song came out of that first group of beats. And then, yeah, it's kind of a combination of both. Definitely there's always some older material that makes it through, but it's mainly new stuff these days, I think.
You've become quietly, I think, or maybe not quietly, I don't know, but one of like the most prolific producers of a certain subsection of hip hop. And you're kind of becoming like a go-to guy for a lot of these artists, contemporaries of Mike's. And, you just did a great album with Paul Barman, a lot of the work with Arm & Hammer as well. I just I wonder, just on a technical sense, how has your music making changed? Are you still using a lot of the same tools?
It hasn't really changed at all, to be honest. I think quietly was the right way of saying it, because to me, nothing's changed much except for that more people are listening now. But the process certainly hasn't changed, although the location of my studio changed last year for the first time in almost 15 years.
Wow.
The equipment's all the same. It's not like I bought a bunch of new equipment. I just moved it into a slightly larger room than it used to be in.
What are those tools? Like, what are, if you're comfortable?
Yeah, I'm not a secretive person. I mean, I'm in the box for the most part. I do have some key, like, nice preamps. I have like a Neve preamp. I have an 1176 compressor. I have enough out of the box or like outboard gear to get like a good, clean, or colored analog signal into the computer, but most of the magic happens in the computer. Currently I'm Ableton based, but over the years I've used it all. Like Digital Performer was my main DAW for quite a few years. I grew up with Fast Tracker and Cool Edit, if anyone's old enough to know about those programs. I also used Acid Pro at one point. I used Logic. I used to think that Logic sounded better than Cool Edit, so I would do all the recording in Cool Edit and then mix it in Logic back in the day. To me, all of them, if you know what you're going for, like the DAW doesn't really matter that much, I think. All I need is to be able to collage some sounds on top of each other pretty much. And I mean, I could probably do that in Microsoft Paint, like, frankly.
I'd like to see that. But
I mean, that's might be a new concept for a future instrumental album.
Kenny collages with paint. You heard it here first.
You know who actually did that is Thavius Beck, back when he was Ad-lib. Did he have an album that was all Mario Paint tracks? I'm pretty sure.
I had not heard that, but it would not be
pretty sure.
surprising.
This is before Thavius Beck was called Thavius Beck. It was called Ad-lib when he was part of Global Flotations back in the day. I'm pretty sure he had an album that was like all... Because remember how like Mario Paint had like a music, or Mario Part? One of those Mario games had a music software in it.
I don't think I ever had it. I didn't have a Super Nintendo, but I do remember hearing that there was like a music making component to one of those.
Yeah, I super annoyed my friends at sleepovers because my parents wouldn't allow me to have a video game system, so I'd only play video games at friends' houses, and they would all be playing like Mario Kart or whatever the cool game is, and then people would be going to bed, and I'd be like, now I'm gonna make a beat on Mario Party or something like.
It was Mario Party.
Yeah, it's
That
Mario
is what it
Party,
was.
right? And
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had like little mushrooms made one sound, and like they had all the different characters, like, and each one had a different like timbre on the staff.
And they were all like, "Hey, we're gonna go like watch a movie or like go in the pool," and you're like,
and
"Nah,
just
I'm
no,
good."
I'm gonna make a beat real quick.
Yeah, the Sega Genesis was my final entry point into the world of video games, which I guess sort of makes me ancient at this
That's
point.
quite some time ago.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
been a
but
bunch.
you know what it
since then.
was? It's not because I didn't want to, but at a certain point, whatever was next, because like this would have been, I guess next was like the Sega CD and like the Jaguar and all these.
Right, that
things.
was a very awkward time in gaming. I think.
Well, it was being flooded with
32-bit consoles.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the leap from 16 to 32, and I still remember this kid Brett that I went to middle school with, and he had all of them. You know, I don't know what his situation was, but he had all of them, and I just remember being very tantalized by it. I remember going to my mom and being like, "Okay, so there's a new one," and she basically just was like, "Look, I'm not going to get you anymore, and here's why. They're just going to keep coming out with new systems, and you're just going to keep wanting them." And somehow, in that moment, I was like, "Oh, she's right," like, and I just sort of tapped out.
I mean, proving your mom right. My gaming is a Nintendo Switch where I play almost all like 16-bit games that are either actual throwbacks or just new version of games that look like throwback games. So she's kind of right.
It's fair. Where do you land on the gaming spectrum?
Oh, I give me all of them. I'm, PS5 right now, PS4 before that. I tend. There was a few years, I'd say like after undergrad, where I didn't have like a current console, but from like the PS3 era on, I've been locked in.
You've remained current.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes, I have.
I'm not sure I could operate a PS3. If you set a timer and like the building will explode, if I'm able, we would all be toast. I wouldn't have been able to get it.
It's just like power. Like there's not much to it.
No, I understand like how to turn it on, but I don't know. I guess certain parts of my brain have stopped evolving. I'm not a stranger to technology.
Isn't that weird how I know I grew up being like the technology whiz kid amongst my friend group, and now I fully am like, oh, I don't know how to work this phone anymore.
Phones I don't have a problem with. A lot of like the AI tools I'm now like super dialed in on and trying to learn. And I think that's kind of that'll be a new sort of leap where some people will get it. I mean, as creatives, I feel like AI can be a very dicey territory. Where you guys
managed to pretty much ignore it so
Got it.
far. I do watch YouTube videos about it sometimes, but yeah, I don't really have the AI outside of the Google AI answers or whatever. Like when you Google something,
outside of all the ways that they're like sort of shoehorning AI into
right.
processes
Outside of
really
that, I really
nasty.
have very little AI experience, to be honest.
Well, I do a lot of live streaming, so I have a front row seat to the discourse all the time.
Yeah.
So I mostly ignore it just because the discourse is annoying.
Yes.
And it's like I want the world to land somewhere before I make any sort of choice.
Absolutely. There's also like a democratization that's happening, which like in some ways is great, and it's cool that people can ideate, but also like we're seeing a lot of terrible flyers.
Oh, so bad. So bad. I'm in a fraternity. I pledged a fraternity when I was an undergrad.
Yeah.
And one of my frat brothers posted a flyer about, some reunion event. And I was like, oh, Jesus. That is terrible.
This is going to be an unpopular opinion, but barriers to entry are sometimes a good thing.
That's not unpopular to me at all.
I think generally that's an unpopular opinion, but
gatekeeping has become weaponized in a way, but like gates exist for a reason.
right,
Somebody
having to have a
upkeep-
minimal interest in a type of art form before you become a creator in that art form, I think is a good general prerequisite. Because now I just feel, or like when I was in high school, to know how to make a beat was some arcane shit. And it was too arcane, to be honest. You had to have thousands of dollars of equipment and someone to teach you how to use it because there was no YouTube channel or something.
Right.
Now I feel like if you're in middle school and you don't know how to make a beat and produce a music video and like
You're
maybe
a
a
fucking
TV show
loser.
around it, right? Like that's just average skills for everyone. And not that it should be as hard as it used to be, but I do think that having a little skin in the game of having to like know how to do it and have an idea of your own and a goal with it is helpful for good art to be created. If you can make a music video while you're taking a dump on the toilet, it's probably not going to be the best art.
Hard to argue with that. But I mean, okay, so that raises an interesting question. You guys are both have a lot of you have deep catalogs, and you've been doing what you do for a while. I always am careful on saying that. I'm not trying to say anybody's like old or whatever, but you know,
Getting there.
you guys are not strangers to this. What, like, you're on the cusp now of having just released this album. Like, what does it mean to make the art that you guys make now in 2026? I have fallen back a lot on the creative side of making it, but I certainly was in the trenches at various points. Sometimes I feel like it's amazing and it's empowering that, you know, the internet, I guess, to use a broad stroke in the way that art is consumed, we are missing some of those gates that, you know, we spoke of earlier. Sometimes it feels like a complete hellscape. So I'm sure you both have a lot of insight to share about that, or I hope you do. Otherwise, we'll edit this out.
You want to take that one first, or?
I just think about what I think are the benefits for how long I've been doing this. And what always occurs to me, especially like this album, when I listen back to it, it's like I am like just as a human instrument, I'm so much more dialed in now in terms of knowing what my own capabilities are, knowing how to like get the exact sound I want, the exact emotion I want out of being a recording artist. After, like, this will be my 11th full-length project, I think, and I can hear the attunement. You know what I'm saying?
Like the voice is an instrument, and
yeah. And kind of how, like, you know, if you're a filmmaker, in your 11th film, you're probably your capabilities are just a lot more developed. And for as much as, you know, it's definitely a young man's game, and we're definitely in hip hop breaking a lot of new ground as like these middle-aged people, like, you know, and not, of course, not just us too, like our cohort, like, and even on the mainstream level, you see a lot of acts that are older that are making probably the best music they ever made. I mean, I think that there's a long history of people sort of falling off or getting lazy. I think that, you know, our type of approach where it is about, it's about creativity, it's about talent, it's about novelty, it's about staying sharp. I think that what we're able to do at this juncture is just so much more sophisticated. I feel like that's where you really see, like, that's the good side of the experience, of the amount of experience, is seeing like, oh, just operating on a higher level than I certainly ever have been before.
Yeah, I mean, to build on that, I mean, I think we're both, and specifically me as well, like very lucky in that having some amount of success later on in your career, like having done this for 20 some years, and then in the last 5 years having people pay attention a lot more makes you so much more grateful for it. Because when it happens early, I've had a lot of friends who that happened in their early 20s and something like that, and it's so easy to just kind of let it all pass you by without really appreciating it. And also, like you said, I feel like when you're younger and that happens, it's easy to fall into that trap of actually caring less about the art and like just kind of taking it for granted that there will be an audience. And when you've spent so much time doing it without a big audience, and then start having a bigger audience later on, your skills are up. You have like a more maturity and more intention to what you're doing. And that, in combination of just the general like gratefulness that people care, Like, I think it's more meaningful, I think, happening a little later in your career. And believe me, I wake up every day grateful that I get to like come up with some idea in my head and then it turns into a physical album in my hands a year later. Like that's a really powerful, like I've been doing it for 20 years now and it still doesn't get old is all I can say. Like,
I mean, you guys are both products of and contributors to the whole Project Blowed culture scene here. And what year are we on now? I feel like
I think it's like a 32nd year, 31 year anniversary, something.
I think it's 32. 32.
32?
This December will be 32.
Wow. So, I mean, looking back in the rear view on it, and you guys obviously joined and were more active later on. You were there for all 32 years, but we sort of see like the fingerprints that Project Blowed has on what you do today and maybe even Los Angeles as a whole. Like, do you see a lot of through lines there?
Yeah, I mean, those are literally the people that raised me in music. I don't know if there's like tons of like my sound sounds exactly like Project Blowed at this point, but it's definitely in the DNA of not just my music itself, but even how I move through life. Like one thing that I got from Project Blowed was, and the funny thing is I also got this from Team Supreme later on, which had a similar dynamic of this like everyone's friends, but also very competitive at the same time. This steel sharpened steel kind of vibe, which in modern times, I think that's not as like prevalent. I think there's a lot more like everyone's super nice and we're all trying to be as supportive as possible. And Project Blowed is definitely a spot where people tell you to your face that you're whack. And like you kind of have to push a little bit to the front to even get on the mic. Like no one was like, Mike, you're awesome. Here's a microphone. Like rap.
Quite the opposite.
Right, exactly. You're having to literally push and shove to get your spot. But there's a certain, it imparts something to your artistry that I think is important. And I think that both of us, in different ways, both of us probably have those marks like in our, just really in our DNA. Like,
yeah, and I think that's, that Project Blowed spirit, the one that you're describing, that like cutthroat environment where, you do end up having to lean on your own belief in yourself to push through that. And I do think it creates a different type of artist that like is unafraid to take risks. And I feel like that same spirit is in, like Low End Theory, which is another part of the DNA of both of us.
It's kind of a Los Angeles spirit,
exactly.
If anything, I would say.
There's so many talented people here and only so many stages or only so many, sets of turntables to get in front of and rock. And so it's like if you have to really believe that you're doing something worthwhile and the people here make you prove it. They make you prove it.
And celebrate doing something interesting. Because I think a lot of other, on the LA tip, like a lot of, like New York hip hop, there's very much like a sound to it. And like people conform, to be successful in it, you conform to that sound. While I feel like both Project Blowed and Low End Theory celebrated the artists that were the most non-conforming a lot of the time, which I don't think that's true in many other music scenes. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think from an outside perspective, not having grown up here and not being here for a lot of those years, I think so much of the West Coast sound was defined by a very like mainstream Billboard version of what it was that sort of allowed there to be these countercultures or reactions to that not only...
Right, and I'm talking about underground music, obviously, not like gangster rap or anything like that.
No, but I mean, I would argue that a lot of those underground scenes were able to sort of flourish as a reaction to what was sort of being broadcast as, oh, that's the California sound, that's the LA
the
sound.
interesting thing on the rap side is that if you kind of know what to listen for, you can hear the underground even in the mainstream stuff.
Oh, for
you
sure.
can hear like these little flourishes Snoop used to do, and it's like, oh, like that's a good life kind of flourish.
Oh, totally.
Like,
yeah, Peace's fingerprints are all over a lot of West Coast. Like,
Volume 10, like there's a lot you can hear in that, even though the Dr. Dre's of the world, they figured out how to make a mass appeal version of it. If you really get drilled down into it, it was always these kind of crazy rap patterns that they messed with, and I feel like that's part of the through line of the LA hip hop experience, mainstream and underground.
Certainly the first time I ever heard Kendrick Lamar, I was like, this guy must have listened to a ton of Freestyle Fellowship.
Right.
I don't think that he didn't come out the gate crediting that. I do feel like maybe later down the line, I don't remember, but certainly, especially around like To Pimp a Butterfly.
Right. By the time that came out, I think that was the narrative they had settled on.
So, Mike, we were speaking earlier before we started recording about podcasting. You are, I consider you a podcast OG.
That's funny. I kind of forgot about podcasting. We got so deep into talking about. That's right. I do that too.
Well, it's the multi-hyphenate brain, right? But
You're right.
you were, I mean, from Secret Skin, which I believe that was your first.
That's my first one. Yeah.
Was your first podcast, to What Had Happened Was, to many of the offshoots. You've got Past Due now, which is a favorite of mine. I really enjoy hearing you talk about the creative's plight. And some really interesting and honest conversations. And honestly, I mean, I gotta, I'm going to say give you flowers, which has become the new colloquialism. I'm going to compliment you.
I don't hate compliments.
No, it's fine. It's weird. My brain defaults to being like, give you flowers. But like, you were a very early supporter of the questions. You were coming to our events early on in Highland Park when I was trying to figure out my podcasting.
You mean there was a place to compete as a rap nerd? Did you think that you could stop me from going?
It was a good beacon for like-minded individuals.
Absolutely.
And for everything that you did with Stony Island, the podcast network, and giving the questions a home there. Where do you sort of what itch does podcasting scratch for you, and does it still?
It absolutely does, because I feel like a lot of people don't really realize that entertainment is like a war fought through narrative. And, the highest level entertainers are usually in a position to control their own narrative. And they spend a lot of money controlling their own narrative. And a lot of times, musicians with less resources, musicians that used to have a lot of resources, they don't have a lot of the same capability to tell their own story, and it's so important. And I feel like, just like hip hop at the end of the day is a very do-it-yourself art form. Like, even though you may need technology to some degree to get the right beat or record it, at the end of the day, it's really about beating on stuff and making rhymes. I feel like the DIY version of controlling your own narrative is turning on a microphone and telling people what it is you want them to know. So I think that, like, just for how much I love hip hop and the people who make it, I feel like it's just, there's an endless amount of benefit to being able to tell your own story and let people know what your narrative is. And podcasting is the industry built around that.
Right. And it also speaks to something else we were talking about earlier, going super deep, super niche, creating a platform for people to talk about things where not only is the interest not dictated by, this is what people are interested in, but also like how long you can talk about it. You know what I mean? We could have easily decided like, hey, we're going to hijack this episode. We're going to speak only about our personal experiences about video games for the next hour. And like that
probably would have been pretty interesting.
Like, fuck around and start a new show here, just doing that.
Quick aside.
Yes.
Our first single off the album is called Concrete. And I was looking around for some concrete visuals on YouTube to make the visualizer for the first single. And you know what I happened upon when I was looking for concrete visual? I found that there is a long-running podcast about concrete mixing.
What?
That people just sit around and talk about concrete.
All the different additives. And
I don't know. I didn't listen to it.
Rebar thicknesses and
probably you should be a guest on the Concrete Mixing Podcast. But all that to say, especially what you're speaking to with niches, there are people interested in everything. There's no subject that that there isn't some person or people who want to hear people go in depth about it.
Did you ever feel early on, though, that they felt like they were conflicting paths, like Mike Eagle, the artist, versus a podcaster? Did the podcasting ever feel like a threat to the artistry?
Not a threat. To me, it always felt like, because especially the conversations that I was wanting to have, especially if you go back to Secret Skin, those are conversations I was having with other artists anyway.
It just happened to be
recording them, right? Where the part where it does get difficult for me at times is I'll be talking to a legendary producer, and there is a part of me that's like existentially in crisis about like, none of my own work is centered here in any way whatsoever. And I'll be in a conversation with somebody where I might actively feel like I am an artist, but that part of me doesn't get to exist in the conversation.
Sure.
And so that sometimes I can have real issues around that I have to have off mic, you know what I'm saying, just internally. But it's never been a conflict in terms of thinking both things could exist. It's just trying to know when to validate my own self as an artist and have more of a streamlined process for how to tuck that part of myself away.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I use that terminology because initially for me, I was developing as a musician and as a music producer at the same time as I was a journalist. And I was like writing for OK Player and a bunch of like blog era stuff. And I often, there came a time where I was like, no, I'm not going to be a journalist because I don't want these creatives that I'm interacting with to sort of pigeonhole me into this, oh, that's what he does. But I think that the narrative...
Plus, I'd assume it's hard to just not want to slip someone some beats, like if you're...
Right.
100%.
Conflict of interest type stuff.
But quite honestly, in my case, not feel that it would be out of place to slip the beats, so never doing it, and then just feeling like shit, like for a long time. But I think that has shifted, and I think, again... I used to like feel like I needed to hide or compartmentalize like the hyphenate parts of myself. And I think that now more than ever, whether it's, even if it's through just necessity, because you kind of have to be able to do a lot now, like I think that the world has sort of leaned more towards embracing people who can get you a guy who can do it all, you know?
You know, it's funny though. I do understand why somebody like a Joe Budden is like, oh, I have to retire if I'm going to do this. Because what he's going to do is apply his experience as a former major label rapper, somebody who's been in all these different parts of the business and has all these different relationships and his perspective. And I do think if you're him, it's hard to say what you want to say if you're also going to be selling an album.
Right, you're giving up all of your game, basically.
I mean, you're giving up your game, you're also opening yourself up to being completely picked apart, analyzed, criticized, not even have your music taken on its own quality because you're spending so much time talking about everybody else's. So I do understand that there can be a conflict there at times. I just don't think it necessarily applies to me.
Sure. I would think also in the Joe Budden model as well, if you're going to perhaps be critical of other people, you're essentially barring them from featuring on your album.
True.
A lot of like discourse and things, like conversations that used to happen privately. Now, what do they say? Like 3 guys getting together and having a conversation now is a podcast, you know? So the fact that everything's recorded, it sort of leaves a breadcrumb, public trail of statements that may or may not be held against you, I guess. But I guess that's the internet in general, right?
I mean, yeah, you do have to watch what you say more than ever because, we do all have our own media platform now, whether it's a podcast or whether it's your social media feed or whatever. So, you do have to kind of be careful. I mean, I think there is an urge within all of us to weigh in on things as conversations develop. But yeah, it is good to be mindful of if you want to also be a participant, you kind of got to be careful what you put out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to throw to, we're here at the FYI campus, and I'm going to throw to my AI agent, Seanvo.
Seanvo?
Seanvo, yeah. And we will we'll get into some of these questions that Shambo has. So
This
let
might be
me.
my most extensive AI chat I've ever had, possibly.
Well, it'll be a familiar voice. So let's see.
Is he gonna say, "You got me. I made that one up. Sorry."
Hey, Shavo, I'm here with Open Mike Eagle and Kenny Segal. We had talked about doing some rapid fire questions, and I know you had some. I don't know what they are yet, so put me on the spot. What is the first question that you have for these guys? It is an honor to be part of the mix. Let us jump right into it. Question one for you both. What is one thing that each of you understands about the other creatively that most people probably miss?
Oh, wow. That's pretty creepy, Sean.
Yeah. The voice is pretty close.
Pretty close, right?
Very uncanny valley.
Yeah. All right, I'll go first. Different artists I work with have different amounts of like the way they want to collaborate. Mike is someone that I've known way before we started this project, just from working on other things and mixing with him. Is someone who's, I think, kind of reclusive in how you create your art. You're not I want to come to the studio and sit there with you and write, and you also want to record yourself by yourself. Mm-hmm. And going into this, I knew that was like your style, and I try as a producer to cater my style to the artist's style, but that's something, I don't know if it's apparent that Mike is an artistic recluse.
Probably not. It's probably not something that a lot of people know. I think it's a really good answer.
That's good. Mike, do you have any observation about Kenny?
I think more than most producers I work with, Kenny's beats, or I don't even know if you want to just call them beats, because they're all like little pieces of music, but they very much exist in stages. They very much exist in stages. And I think when you listen to this album, you'll hear some things that have largely stayed the same as when he first sent them to me, but most of them have developed quite a bit from at least where they were when I first heard them. And even when I first hear it, I don't even know how many stages there have been between the initial creation and by the time I hear them. Yeah.
So is it sort of a ping pong where like you'll develop the beat or composition to a certain point, send it to Mike, Mike records vocals, and then
And then I add more stuff or react to that? I mean, yes. And this is one of the reasons why I really like working with people that I'm already close with and that I have a relationship with, because Mike, I don't mind, I might just find two interesting sounds that I think juxtaposed on each other sound really cool. And it's not even a song yet. I wouldn't even call it anything yet, but I might just send you a very basic loop of two sounds that I think could be cool. And if it was someone that that I don't know that well, like I probably wouldn't do that. Like I'd feel some pressure to like make it a real song already. But to me, a lot of times the direction of where that's going to go depends on what the artist wants to do with it. So yeah, I love sending off kind of half-cocked ideas to people and then building on that to create the final product.
And you know, part of what makes that such a fertile way to work with Kenny is because you can imagine what it might sound like after he's done.
Right. It's just, here's an idea, and both of you being open and trusting enough in each other that it's going to evolve.
Right. I think trust is also an important part of that, is working with people that like, I'm not scared of sending you something of like, oh, he's going to turn this into something horrible and then we'll be stuck with it. Like, I mean, that's extreme, but you know what I mean? But working with people where I trust their instincts, and I know if I don't need to guide you all the way to the finished thing, I can kind of give you something where you could go in 4 different directions, and I know whichever one you choose is going to be something that's interesting.
Shavo, we liked that last question. Do another one, please. Glad you two dug that. Let us keep it moving. Question 2, which song in your catalog best captures the specific chemistry you two have as a duo? So maybe from the album, or maybe one of your past collaborations, but what do you think?
I would say, I think that our past collaborations have been great, but they've mostly set the table for what this is, which I think is a different level. And the first song on this album is called Out to Lunch, and it's one of the best things I think I've ever made. And it really does start with the sort of feelings I got when I first heard this beat. So to me, like that song is at or very near the pinnacle, I think, of what our collaboration sounds like.
I'm going to say that's a great answer. And that, to me, that's a beat that also shows the full potential of what both of us do, I think. Because it has it's kind of started as a slightly more stripped back sample-based beat. And then I added saxophone, and actually our friend Jordan Katz, we're just talking about, played some French horn and trombone on it, I think. He played a couple of brass instruments on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we built it up into something that's pretty epic when it kind of started a little bit more bare bones. But I'm going to throw kind of an opposite one out there, is No Selling. And that No Selling is the perfect example of our previous, actually, man, I don't even know. Idaho is also similar. Both of the,
Hey, look, man, you can only give one. I don't know what you're doing here.
both Idaho and No Selling, to me, the narrative of them was that I gave you a fairly, a beat that I didn't really know if it was even a hip hop beat, kind of. It was like a weird beat that most people wouldn't want to do anything with. You sat on both of those beats for quite a long time after I gave them to you, and then sent me an amazing song way after the fact. And No Selling, the reason that I really said that one first is that No Selling was also a song that when you first sent it to me, I didn't fully understand it, because I'm not a big wrestling fan, and I didn't even understand the concept of what you were talking about.
Right.
Wrestling. It wasn't really until the song came out and people started discussing it online, and then the video came out and everything, that I fully grasped what that song was about. And it was just one of those things where I trusted that it was dope. I knew it sounded aesthetically dope to me, but I just trusted that it was dope.
It makes
sense.
sense.
Then later
Your
on,
wrestling friends will
realized
enjoy this,
quite
right?
how brilliant of a piece of art we had created without me fully even understanding what had happened.
That's interesting. Yeah, but we talk about these niches, and that's certainly that song. The concept of it came from a super niche part of a super niche thing, so that checks out.
Hey, Shanvo, what else you got? Let's pivot to something a bit more dynamic. Question 3. When you're in the studio together, who is usually the one saying we are almost done, and who is the one pushing to take it a little further? So you guys obviously aren't in the studio together per se. Or are you for the mixing and finishing?
I mean, we hang out in the studio sometimes, though not a ton. I'm definitely a taking it further person, but I don't think that you aren't a taking it further person either. So I feel like we both are.
I'm not, but I think that maybe you're a little bit more take it further than I am. you might
went far, but take it a little further.
I'm a tinkerer. I like to tinker till the last minute, and I'm also very open, even in the final hours of a project, to be like, let's completely change this song if it doesn't seem, because
that makes me nervous.
Yeah, see, that sounds like my nightmare. Exactly.
I know, but to me, there's certain things on an album that you can't see until you're 90% of the way there. Because sometimes you're too caught up in the trees to see the forest, and in that 90% stage, there's certain hard truths become evident that you might have completely missed. And to me, I had early on enough projects happen where I saw those hard truths towards the end, but didn't act on it, and then had it come out, and then had regrets that now I'm old enough and wise enough to be like, fuck that. If this isn't right, we might need to scrap this song, or maybe I need to make a whole new beat for this song at this point, or...
Mike looks so uncomfortable right now. Just I'm traumatizing.
It's funny though, because what you reminded me of is a lesson that I learned maybe midway through releasing albums too. That the thing that bothers me about a song when I hear it back, whether it's the demo stage or the mixing stage or whatever, change it right then. Because there, like Kenny's saying, there have been many times where I just oh, it's not that big a deal. And after it comes out, that's all I can think about is the one thing that I knew was a problem.
And the longer you let it sit, the harder of a problem it becomes to change. You're right. There's a moment where it's not that big of a deal to make a change, but yeah.
It reminds me, Fonte has a song, I think on one of his solo albums, where he talks about when he listens to his music, all he hears is the mistakes. And that definitely resonates, I think, for a lot of self-critical creatives. So yeah, it's good to nip those things in the bud. when you can.
Especially when you're in an indie music space where there's not that many levels of people checking our work, kind of, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's not, I mean, look, I don't really want there to be a bunch of label execs telling me, no, that's a bad idea, or that's not up to our standards. But at the same time, when the buck stops with you, that's also a certain amount of pressure of that the buck really stops with you. If something's not right and you didn't catch it or speak up about it, then it's just not going to be right.
Do you ever think about like Kanyeing it in that sense? I know that's a contentious term, but like
get real specific.
I hate
just that's a broad statement. Yeah.
I hate the idea of doing what he's doing, where he like remodifies the album simply for my
To be clear, yeah, that's what we're talking about.
simply for my own sanity. If the possibility existed for me to go back to anything I've done in the last 10 years and then modify it and then have it put it back up on DSPs or whatever, I would go insane, because I would never make new music. I would just sit thinking about what I want to make my old music more perfect or something. Like to me, I need to mentally like clear my head and say, this is done and it is what it is, and this is like a moment in time that was captured, and you can't, you don't have a time machine, so it is what it is.
I do agree with you to an extent, but very recently I was listening to a song that I made with a singer, and we really liked it at the time. Put it out probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and I was driving the car and something made me pull it up. I was like, this should have been faster. And I texted him and I said, what would you feel like, and I did a little mix in Ableton where I just bumped, I didn't go into the session, I just took the MP3 and I sped it up a little bit, and I sent it to him, and he was like, oh, that's interesting, this actually sounds great. I was like, do you think we should re-release it? Because like the song didn't do crazy numbers the first time, and I think we are gonna just re-release it, because again, there's like no rules.
I mean, reimagining it and putting it out as just a new thing, I don't think that that's quite the same as like if I was like, so the flies don't come, maybe we should have an 11th song that we didn't think of before. Like that to me is just insane, because it just opens up a can of worms that I'm not willing to, I would, as long as I have new ideas that I think are worth pursuing, I'd rather pursue new ideas than to keep on relitigating the past.
And I'm very much an album guy.
Yeah.
And you only get that one chance to tell the story of that album. You don't get to retell the story again usually. So like that's why I'd feel real weird about changing too much.
All right, fine, we won't do it. This is going to be the final version of the album. We'll do a few more with Shanvo here. Hey, Shanvo, what's your next question? What is one influence completely outside of hip hop that has unexpectedly shaped the way you two collaborate?
I mean, I'm influenced by a lot of alternative rock music, and I bring that. I would say I bring that into every collaboration that I do, but I think that I've leaned on that part of my creativity more lately. So, like, if you listen to the hooks on this album, and I would say even my last album too, I think that I'm leaning into that part of my inspiration probably more than ever, increasingly. You
remain the biggest They Might Be Giants fan that I have encountered in real life.
I better be the biggest.
It's you.
I'll fight anybody who say they're a bigger one.
Kenny, what about you?
I'll say, again, I'm not sure how this specifically relates to our collaboration, but just all of my music, 9 Inch Nails, I would say, even though I'm not like a huge current fan of whatever Trent Reznor's doing right this moment.
He'll hear this.
Growing up,
it's coming for you, Ken.
when I heard the Downward Spiral, that was the album that kind of cemented the idea that being a producer was like a thing. Like up until then, I didn't have like a very like concrete idea of how the sausage was made with music. I liked music, but that was when I started realizing that the studio was an instrument in itself, and that was a whole lane to be pursued, was like how to make music just with the gear, not even necessarily play an instrument super well, which I think has guided much of my music making career.
Absolutely. All right, Shanvo, one more, make it a good one. Let's keep the energy up. Which one of you is usually the first to bring the truly weird or off-the-wall idea into the room?
I feel like both of us are capable of doing that, in that the way we collaborate, I might be the one, because I might be the one saying like, hey, here's like a chicken noise with like a dishwasher, and I think this actually makes a really interesting beat.
You got chicken dishwasher beats in the tub?
But at the same time, I mean, you're the one who might be like, I want to do a song about not looking at my ex's Instagram, which is not something that the average person would write a song about.
That's true.
Well, I mean, quite honestly, I think that that's a theme that would resonate. You know, like
Well, yeah, but it's not necessarily the first thing you would think of.
There's no rapper that's sitting around being like, let me write a song about that, except for Mike.
I mean, you know, and maybe I'll inspire others.
That is true.
there's a lot of experience to draw from there.
That's true.
I think, yeah.
I think both of us are equal at coming
I
up
think
with
that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
So the album's out. What's next on the horizon for both of you? Are we going to see maybe some shows together, or what's
Absolutely.
That's in the works.
Absolutely, we will.
awesome? And what else beyond this? I mean, I know that's always like a pointed question. It's like, what do you mean, what more? Like,
Listen to the album again.
yeah. But is there anything else that you guys are excited about for the rest of this year?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I mean, I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about any of these things, but I'll just say that I'm working with a number of awesome artists.
Trent Reznor?
I got that chicken who operates his own dishwasher.
That.
Yeah.
But yes, I feel like I'm going crazy if I don't have a couple projects in the works. So yes, I have a couple more albums. I think at least one of them will happen by the end of this year, maybe two. So yeah, I'm always making music, I guess I'd say.
It's a good place to be.
Same here.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining today. I hope this was fun. Made a little interesting AI additions to it.
Sean Bo was pretty good.
He's so funny with his little retorts before he speaks.
So I trained him. I gave him retorts and things, and created a lot of his persona and tendencies.
If I told him that we had never collaborated, would he have answered like, "You got me. You know what? It's good that you keep me on point."
Let's find out. Should we test it? Yeah. Tell him that.
Hey, Sean Bo, did you know that Kenny Segal, has actually never worked with Open Mike Eagle before?
Yes, they have collaborated before. Kenny Segal has produced individual Open Mike Eagle tracks for years, and Doomed is their first full-length album together. We tried to break the computer, and we couldn't, but tune in next week, and we might. Thanks, guys.
I do love a good Instagram video of someone trying to break AI. That is always
become its own subgenre. Yes. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Download the FYI.AI app so you can have your own question and answer sessions with the AI personas in the FYI app. And if you want to learn more about the guest and everything that we discussed in this episode, check out the link below.